Do you want to have an easier and faster way to learn programming? Hey guys, it's Niza from the Krenovator team, and today I'm excited to tell you about Abraham, our new AI assistant who will be helping you with your coding training. So let's jump over to the share screen to see how it's done.
There are two ways you can use Abraham. So right now I'm on the Krenovator's talent dashboard, and here's how you can navigate to use Abraham. So first of all is under the AI coding assistant, and the second one will be under Learning Hub on Coding Training AI. Now, let's explore how to use Abraham to help you learn coding faster. If you clicked the AI coding assistant, you would see this page, which has many programming languages and frameworks for you to ask Abraham about. You would use this page basically to have an easier way to ask Abraham questions. So for example, let's click on Python and ask Abraham a few questions about it. Awesome. So let's ask Abraham something like, hey Abraham, let me think. What should I know about Python as a total beginner? We click search, wait a few seconds. And there we go. So Abraham of course replies, great question. As a beginner, the key is to start with the basics. To get started with Python, you should understand the basic concepts such as variables, data types, functions, and control flow. You could also familiarize yourself with core libraries such as NumPy, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, pandas, and matplotlib. It's also important to understand the different ways you can use Python, such as for web development, data science, or scripting. Finally, practice, practice, practice. So earlier I actually asked Abraham the same question and he gave me a more complex answer, an answer that a full-time programmer would probably understand, but non-programmers would not understand. So I would say the AI is improving, and honestly, as a beginner, this is really good, especially this part where it says understanding the different ways you can use Python, such as for web development, data science, or scripting. So let's try asking Abraham another question. How about, let me think. Let's ask Abraham, what would I need to know if I wanted to create an app using Python? Once again, let's submit the answer and wait a couple of seconds. Okay, so to create an app using Python, I will need to have a basic understanding of the Python programming language, as well as some knowledge of popular libraries such as Pygame and Tkinter. Additionally, I'll need to understand the basics of application development and some experience with object-oriented programming. Finally, I will also need to know how to use a version control system such as Git to track changes to my code and collaborate with other developers. Awesome advice, and it might sound a bit difficult for some of us because, again, we're all not programmers, me included. So I think what we can start off with is learning the Python programming language itself, which brings me to the next section, which is under the Learning Hub and the Code Training AI. So now that we clicked under Learning Hub and Coding Training AI, we are now in the coding training page. So when you come to this page, you just want to practice your coding, and you can choose which exercises you want to do basically. So first of all, we want to choose the programming language that we want to practice with. In our case, would be Python. And since we're very new at this, let's choose a difficulty level of easy. Now, even though it's easy, there's still like 62 modules for us to practice. So we have a lot to do to actually master Python. But let's just start with closest enemy. So, according to this exercise, we will have 30 minutes to finish it. So, if you are comfortable with Python already and you know how to do the closest enemy exercise, by all means try and finish your coding in under 30 minutes. But if you're a beginner like me or totally new to programming, take your time because there is no punishment for going over the time limit. And even after you finish this exercise, if it takes you an hour or two, it doesn't matter because you can always do it again in the future. So now that we understand that, let's start the coding training. So after you've clicked the begin button, you will be taken to this page, and there is quite a lot of things to basically unpack. So first of all, let's start with the top bar up here. So on the top bar, you will see a choice of languages, the run button, and the submit button. So on the language choices, you can choose which language you want to code in. And in our case, since we're doing Python, we'll use Python 3. So the run button is basically to run your code and to see if you can get the correct answer or the correct output, which I will explain very soon. And finally, we have the submit button. So if you have run your code successfully and got the expected output that you wanted, you can click submit to get your code graded basically. So the next section we'll go over is the instructions section. So in the instruction section, basically we want you to understand what you're supposed to do. Basically, we need you to use this Kreno function to get expected output of 4 with an input example of the that looks like this basically. So they even give an example here. For example, if your ARR in JSON is this data set, then when your program should return 3 of the closest enemies, 2. The closest enemy is 2, and 3 spaces away from the 1. The array will contain any numbers of 0s and 2s, but only a single 1. It may not contain any 2s at all as well, where in that case, your program should return a 0. So this is just a brief example of how your program should work. Might sound complicated, but you'll learn how to do it over time. So that was the main instructions. Next would be the input example. So basically what you want to do with the input example is just copy it and put it into this input section here. So again, just select it. You can use shortcuts like Ctrl+C, or you can right-click copy and you just paste it into input. And basically what the exercise wants you to do is for you to find the expected output of 4 over here. So I can't paste the 4 in here. How to basically get numbers into the output is to click the run button. So as long as you have input, as long as you have some sort of code in the middle, you can click the run button. And after a few seconds, you should have output here. Now, for the instructions, they want an output of 4. This is clearly not 4, so we did not run the program correctly, which is obvious because we haven't actually coded anything. Which brings us to the main section, which is the middle part. This is where you will be coding. So any type of code you want to create for your program, you just write it down here. And on the right hand side is basically our AI coding assistant, Abraham. So in the top right corner is where we will be asking him questions, and in the bottom right will be where he gets his answers. So we could ask him basically anything. So I could ask Abraham, hey Abraham, explain what is the closest enemy exercise in Python. So then Abraham just gives me an answer. The closest enemy exercise in Python is a type of coding challenge that involves creating a program to defeat an opponent's code. The goal is to create a code that can outsmart the opponent's code while also being able to defend against the opponent's code. the programming language used for this type of exercise is usually Python, as it is well suited for creating AI-based programs. So that's the application of the closest enemy. In case you are wondering, like, why do I need to do this exercise? Why do I need to learn and master it? So Abraham basically explains what's the implication of this particular exercise. So now that we understand how all of this works, before I forget, if you feel that some of these fields, these areas are too big, too small, you can always resize them. So just hover over the edge and then you can just drag and pull to adjust what you need. So for most of the time, I would like more space for the code, so maybe I'll just pull it to the left. I don't need much input space, so I might just reduce it. And I'll keep the output space a bit bigger because it tends to give me instructions if I have any errors. So when you're comfortable with the interface, you can start coding. So just if you're ever stuck, just use Abraham. When you're unsure on what to do, just ask Abraham to help you out. So some people might be wondering, like, so what exactly do I want to ask Abraham? So you could ask Abraham questions like, what's wrong with my code? Or how do I solve this issue in my code? Or in fact, something like, is there a way to improve my code? So you can ask Abraham these types of questions. But let's say, for example, we wanted to ask what's wrong with my code. Usually you want to actually provide the code to Abraham, then he can basically give you suggestions. But no worries if you just ask this, because Abraham will basically ask for your code as well. So over here it says, there's a difficult question to answer without seeing your code. Can you provide some context or snippet of your code so I can help you troubleshoot it? So if you already have a code, you can just paste it below. If you don't, you could take this, for example, take this entire code, copy it, paste it here, and ask Abraham. So the answer says, it looks like I haven't written any code inside the function Kreno function. It is currently just an empty function that takes a string parameter and returns the same parameter. Exactly why our output is exactly like this. You will need to add code inside the function in order to get the desired output. So yeah, as you add more code here, you can keep checking in with Abraham and he will guide you accordingly. So those are some simple examples, but what I think helps would be to understand that the more information you can give to Abraham, the more accurate he can answer it. So first of all, let me be a bit transparent that I have been practicing Abraham for a while, so I've gotten a bit used to him. And this isn't my first time attempting this particular exercise, as you may have saw earlier. But I have completely used Abraham to help me create this code, which I will be pasting right here. Yeah, so this is the code I prepared in advance. And once again, I basically used Abraham totally. I didn't use any third party. I didn't even try to Google this basically. I just asked Abraham how I could basically solve this exercise. It kept giving me it kept giving me answers to my questions, and I kept asking it more questions until I finally got this as a code. So the reason why I'm not showing it right now is because it took me more than an hour probably. Yeah, it was like one hour to 1.5 hours to just get this line of code. But just remember, I'm totally new to programming. I've never done it in my life. So to get this kind of answer, which works by the way, let me show it to you. So if I click run with this input, I will get 4, which is exactly the output that we wanted. So again, I am by no means a programmer. I've never programmed in my life, and I've only used Abraham to actually help me solve this question. And this is basically the entire code that Abraham helped me write basically. And as we can see, when we run it, we get the output that we want. So honestly, I'm very surprised that I could even get this to run. So let's submit it and see what we get. Give it a few seconds. Okay, training submitted successfully. Okay, we're back to the page. Your latest exercises will always be on the top right. And we have 50%, so not 100%. Let's check the report. So, even though we got a 50% mark, I believe the issue is from the amount of time I took. So, although it told me 30 minutes, like I mentioned earlier, I've done this a few times. So, I think the system expects me to do faster and faster every time. But it doesn't matter because, end of the day, all that matters is I got the correct output, which is which basically got me the score. I just now have to improve on the speed of it. So, as a person that doesn't know Python in the first place, I call this an absolute win.
That's it for the introduction to Abraham, our new AI coding assistant. Use him to help you practice and learn programming languages as well as frameworks faster. He's still a little new, so let us know how we can improve him. If you want to try out Abraham today, click the link below to sign up for a free account. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.